Hey, it's Tim Frisch with A Frisch Perspective here. I've been away for the past week or so with my family on vacation. But even though I've been away, life continues on, stories continue to come, and I heard about this story about a pastor being arrested after giving a sermon on marriage. He was in a public place, I think in London, and he was actually arrested. I will show you a clip of that so you can see a little bit of what happened.
They were arresting the dear man. Look, they're arresting him. Go on, you're on camera. 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 For a man preaching about Christianity, look how he's ripping it. Look how he's ripping it.
Before I talk more about this situation, I want to make sure that I thank one of my viewers, Mike Howard, for sending me a couple of hats, this San Francisco Giants hat, as well as this Oakland A's hat that he sent to me. Thank you so much for doing that, Mike. I have been collecting hats, as a lot of you know. People from all over the country are sending me Major League Baseball team hats to add to my collection, and in return, I'm sending them a copy of my book, God Matters. So if you would like to send me a hat, you can email me at afrischperspective@gmail.com. Get in touch with me about sending me a hat. I do have quite a few hats now, probably somewhere around 15 hats or so. So I'm pretty much halfway there, I think, to collecting all the hats for all the Major League Baseball teams. So thank you to all of my viewers for helping me to build this collection. It's been really fun to connect with viewers from all over the country and even the other places in the world doing this YouTube channel. But one of the reasons I do these videos is to highlight things that are happening, stories like this. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this. I love to hear people's perspectives on things like this in the comment section. So make sure that you leave a comment, and if you like Christian nerdy content like this and analysis like this, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification so that you know when I upload a new video. I will leave a link to this article from Newsweek where it actually goes into detail here as to what happened. I'm not going to read the whole article here, but it says here that he is a 71-year-old pastor. It's Pastor Sherwood. This arrest took place on April 23rd. I was listening to another YouTuber who, from what I understand, is not a Christian. He used to follow Christian teachings, and he left Christianity. And he was commenting on this situation, and actually, even though he's not a Christian, he was really coming to the defense of this pastor and talking about how his rights are being infringed upon, the right to free speech. I'm going to play a clip of that just so you can hear some of how he describes this pastor and this situation.
Now, I happen to know this individual. I don't know him well, but I certainly know from Speaker's Corner, and it is the case that whenever I walk by, he does make a point at shouting at me and calling me a pig, a swine, and so on, because I used to be a Christian. I'm no longer a Christian. He's not a very pleasant man, at least not in that role. Maybe he's very nice to his children, his cat, and his neighbours, maybe, but he is not a very gentle person. He is quite harsh. But I would say this in his defence: what he is saying is the teaching of Christianity. The head of Britain, our monarch, our sovereign, the Queen, our head of state, is also the head of the church. And the Church of England officially teaches exactly what Mr. Sherwood has been preaching in public. So the official head of state and he are saying the same thing. And yet he has been arrested. Now, you can say, oh, well, he's been released, but that's not the end of the story. This action by the police, and they've not apologised for it, creates a chilling effect on people, on churches, both and Muslims and Orthodox Jews and others as well.
So the whole story here is basically that this pastor is someone who does street preaching, and in this particular message he was talking about Christian marriage from the Bible, the biblical view of marriage, and as a result he ultimately was complained about. There were complaints against him, and he was arrested, it says here, for making homophobic comments during his public sermon. What I think is so troubling about this situation, obviously, is that he is being arrested not really for being hateful, but for just teaching what the Bible says. And that's definitely something we should be concerned about. It's not like we have someone here who is really targeting people from what we can see here. The evidence is that he's really just giving a sermon. Now, of course, there are people who are going to interpret what he's saying as being homophobic, but really what he's doing is just giving the view of marriage from the Bible that has been given for millennia. Definitely a Christian perspective on marriage has been that it is between a man and a woman, and Jesus talked about that idea that a man will leave his mother and his father, cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. God created male and female, and what God has put together, let no one separate. That's what Jesus talks about. So that is a Christian view, and it's just really troubling to see just a straightforward Christian teaching being subject to arrest and imprisonment. And from what I understand, he was put in jail overnight. Ultimately, I don't think charges were brought against him, but this is still a form of punishment on someone for just exercising their right to free speech. So that's very troubling. And one other thing that I will add is it's really kind of a reversal of what we've seen in the past. I was thinking about John Bunyan, who was a preacher in the 1600s who was put in jail. And he was in jail for around 12 years at one point because he was preaching in a nonconformist church. He wasn't licensed by the Church of England. And because he was nonconformist, they put him in jail for a long time. But eventually, after that jail sentence, things actually began to lighten up and they became more tolerant of free speech. And that was in England, and now we see kind of the opposite happening, a reversal, that there's less and less tolerance for someone voicing what the Bible says and preaching in public. So a very troubling situation, and again, it's just one of many situations we see where Christians are really just trying to carry out their faith, but they keep running into these different situations with the government, and there's different scenarios that are taking place, but it just seems like less and less leeway is being given to Christians carrying out their faith. We've seen that in the United States, Canada, here in England, in this situation. So I know there are some people who would say, well, we're blowing things out of proportion. It's not really that big of a deal. But I think what you can see is a trend, and things are tightening up against Christianity more and more. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. And I think really this is just the beginning. As culture moves farther and farther away from Christian values, I think Christians and their message is going to be seen more and more as a threat to the larger culture. And so we can expect more of this type of thing to happen if the trend continues. So that's why fighting for free speech, continuing to protect that, is important. I'm sure there's going to be different perspectives on this situation, though, so I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Just try to keep your comments constructive and helpful to conversation. But thank you so much for taking some time to listen to some of my thoughts from A Frisch Perspective.